Start your engines.
When Jim Clark first arrived at Indianapolis, the Americans smiled. The rear-engined Lotus Ford looked very neat, very British, but surely it wasn't big enough to do the job. Big enough and fast enough, it proved. In 1965, Jim Clark became the first winner at Indy to average over 150 miles an hour. The following year, respect for Graham Hill, another Formula One world champion, completed back-to-back victories for Britain. But for over a quarter of a century since, it's really been America's race. The late Colin Chapman brought Nigel Mansell into Formula One with Lotus in 1980. 13 years on, he'd have been proud to see his protege as world champion tackling the Indy 500 for the first time. The odds against success were high, but who'd bet against this competitor? Indianapolis is a driver's sternest test. 500 miles, 200 laps of the four-turn oval, physically grueling, mentally exhausting. But then, what's changed? In 1911, the first 500-miler was run round Indianapolis, double the previous longest race round the circuit. Only possible because 3 million bricks were laid to create a paved surface. Crashes were just part of the game. Ray Haroon in a Marmon Wasp averaged over 74 miles an hour to win in 1911. In 1913, Peugeot became the first foreign make to win. By the late 30s, the average speed was up to 113 miles an hour. Walls now divided spectators from the cars. Immediately pre-war, the bright sparks at Indy borrowed Hollywood technology. Reminiscent of Laurel and Hardy, perhaps, but this was serious business. Looking back, a major innovation. Following Pearl Harbor, the speedway closed in 1942. By then, 29 Indy 500s had been staged. The circuit, though, fell into disrepair. 1946, a lick of paint, new grandstands, most of the bricks replaced by tarmac, and the crowds returned, jamming the roads of Indiana. This was a period of real change, a bright new era. Indianapolis became a tradition again, retaining its usual end-of-May date in the racing calendar. The 1946 race kicked off the new season. Preparation time minimal, George Robson winning at just below 115 miles an hour. Top speeds in 1952 were up to 139 miles an hour as the Frank Curtis-designed roadsters built specifically for the Indy circuit proved ideally suited. Other novelties, the first turbo and the first diesel. George Sally's successful development of the Bellond exhaust special was the major introduction in 1957. Sally determined that a low centre of gravity for the car would improve speed and handling. The engine was slung sideways. Sam Hanks drove to victory. The foreign challenge, dormant post-war, resumed in 1961. Jack Brabham, reigning Formula One world champion, appeared in a Cooper, paving the way for Clark and Hill. America, though, remembers 61 as the year a 26-year-old from Texas won for the first time. A.J. Foyt, on the way to a second successive national championship. 1962, Parnelli Jones in the headlines after qualifying at over 150 miles an hour. But the pace of change was such that only 3 years later, Jim Clark won at an average of over 150 in the Lotus Ford. Dan Gurney was the instigator of the partnership that produced the sleek rear-engine development. 1969, Mario Andretti, a popular winner. He lifted the record average speed to over 156 miles an hour. Male domination ended in 1977 when Janet Guthrie qualified for the race. Her car lasted 27 laps. That same year, Clay Regazzoni from Switzerland ran into big trouble. Somehow, he emerged unhurt. Tom Snaver snatched pole position in 1978 for the second year in succession, this time averaging 200 miles an hour. By 1982, ground effect cars were the fashion. Rick Mears started from pole. 500 miles later, he was pipped for first place by Gordon Johncock, the margin 1600ths of a second. The Kentucky kid, Danny Sullivan, in his first season with Penske, won in 1985, the team's 5th win overall since it first appeared in 1969. Kevin Cogan's massive accident 4 years later was transmitted round the world, an example of the hazards of Indianapolis. Nelson Piquet crashed last year, one of a whole catalogue of accidents that littered practice, qualifying and the race, prompting changes to car design and to the track itself to make the Indy experience that much safer. 1992 saw the closest finish of all time, Al Unser Jr. holding off Scott Goodyear to win by 400ths of a second. Unser's first win after 10 years of trying. The Borg-Warner Trophy's the prize, but coupled with the title goes the glory and the prestige of victory in the world's greatest motor race. In 1992, Nigel Mansell achieved a lifelong ambition to win the World Formula One Drivers' Championship. In 1993, he faced another considerable challenge, his debut season in Indycar racing, as world champion, the man to beat. His last race of 1992 was in Australia at Adelaide. His first of 1993 was in Australia at Surfers Paradise. Mansell loves Australia, but he'd never won there till this year, and even then not everything went smoothly. Starting from pole, he lost the lead, regained it, received a stop-go penalty. Eventually, he swept to victory. A brilliant start to his new career. Round 2 of the series, Phoenix, Arizona. In pre-season testing, he'd smashed the lap record, but this was the first time he'd been at the oval alongside other competitors. Unconscious, he was taken to hospital for urgent attention. There was no chance of him racing, but that was his intention when he first came round. A fortnight on, and the next port of call, Long Beach, California. Once part of the Formula One calendar, the circuit had changed since Nigel last ran there in 1983. Despite intense pain from his back, injured in the Phoenix crash, he claimed pole position yet again. And to finish third in the race represented a remarkable achievement. It was now obvious that his back needed something more than rest and recuperation. Top of the championship after 3 races, he couldn't afford to miss the Indy 500. His rookie orientation program was delayed while doctors examined the extent of his injury. His rookie rivals became acquainted with the circuit, while the Indycar medical team took scans of Mansell's injured back.
This gives you some idea.
They revealed a pouch close to the spine that filled with blood and fluid. Surgery was the only answer, but there was no guarantee that recovery would be rapid enough to allow him back into a racing car in time to go through the lengthy rookie qualifying procedure. That his recovery was quick is history. Just 2 weeks after the operation that required 60 tiny internal stitches, Nigel Mansell arrived to sign on for the Indy 500. His first close-up glimpse of the circuit came courtesy of a sedate drive round the oval, chauffeured by his teammate Mario Andretti. The rookie test had to be completed first. Gently Red 5 was towed from Gasoline Alley to Pit Road. Crowds of well-wishers shouted good luck messages. Shortly after 11 in the morning, tension in the air. A few words of advice and encouragement from Paul Newman, co-owner of the team with Carl Haas. Haas has worked with so many of the world's top names: Jackie Stewart, Alan Jones, Peter Revson, Jackie Ickx, the Andrettis, of course, and now Mansell. The object of the test is not to run quickly, but to prove that the driver can go at a strict pace, initially between 185 and 190 miles an hour, building up to over 200 miles an hour in the final phase. Roseanne Mansell, sensing the tension. So much riding on success here, the consequences of failure unthinkable. It was only a year ago that Nelson Piquet at Indianapolis for the first time hit the wall at high speed, seriously injuring both legs. Nigel, still recovering from his back surgery, knew the harsh penalties for mistakes at Indianapolis. The first 3 stages were completed without undue alarm. Mansell returned to the pits with just 1 phase to go. A more than satisfactory beginning. Oval racing requires experience. Adaptation from road racing is never immediate. The Indy officials have seen them all go through the programme without exception. The Unsers, the Andrettis, Fittipaldi and Foyt. Mansell was very impressive. Phase 4, watched by various fellow competitors at each turn, all reporting on his every move. The Haas cigar, essential equipment in the circumstances. Nigel becoming more and more accustomed to the place as the test went on, trackside observers sensing growing confidence in the cockpit. The IBM Tag-Heuer timing system transmitted his progress from track to pits. Antennae buried in the track surface at intervals all round receive coded signals from the onboard transmitter. Signals are then sent to the video data displays in pit road, so a driver's performance on any part of the circuit can be analysed. The Newman-Haas crew, close to achieving the first aim. And as the tension gradually lifts, the 2 team owners start to relax at last. Back to the pits, and no doubt about the result of the rookies' examination. USAC confirmed that he was now officially allowed to compete in the race and could line up in the practice sessions. Virtually everyone agreed Mansell was expected to pass. Indeed, he should have passed, but he did it all so impressively. Remember that it was his first time at this famous circuit, that he was still suffering from an injured back after crashing the last time he'd driven on an oval. This was an auspicious beginning at Indy, the promise of great things to come. Red 5, back to the garage, very much the centre of attention. Roseanne, relieved and delighted it was all over. And she wasn't the only one.
I'm pleased to tell you now that I've completed all phases of my rookie orientation. It's been a bit more sort of fraught than normally, because I've had to do it with all the other cars going quick on the circuit, and as you've probably seen, there's been a lot of yellows thrown, so it's taken a lot longer than it normally does do. I'm very pleased though. At the end of the orientation I managed to turn in a lap of 2:18.5, which puts us in the top 12 places. We're going to do one more run today. Just change the setup just a little bit on the car and just get myself feeling a little bit more comfortable in turns 1 and 2. I'm losing most of my time in the first 2 turns. The third turn I'm as quick as anybody, or it appears that we're reasonably close. And turn 4 we can perhaps go a little bit quicker, but for the first day here, I mean, it is a very, very impressive circuit to sort of go out down the straights at 2:35 to 2:40 and then try and make yourself turn into that corner flat out without lifting. At the moment there's no way. And I've seen the computer traces of one quick lap Mario did 2 days ago, and he went into turn 4 flat, but that was the only turn he did go into flat, and he did 2:23 that lap. And today poor Trace is the quickest at 2:24, so he's probably gone through 2 turns flat. At the moment, I mean, I'm not going through any turn flat, so but you know, I'm very happy. I think to be here just 14 days after the major operation I had, I'm just pleased to have made it.
One veteran USAC official declared his appreciation of the Mansell talent.
He went right into each phase, one right after another, and sometimes because he had enough fuel on, he could go from one phase to another, and he walked through it about as fast as anybody that's ever done it. He's a great person, he's a great race driver, and he adapted to this track real great.
Practice and qualifying for the Indy 500 is a long, drawn-out affair, not the normal 3 days. Here, it's 3 weeks. Nobody ever claims to have tamed Indianapolis, but Nigel's progress was exceptional. 94 laps in the day, 4th fastest overall. But still, the unwary, unwise, or just plain unlucky were caught out. Davy Jones, the Jaguar sports car driver, probably prefers Le Mans in the dark. Robbie Buell, Indy Lights champion, a rookie at the circuit, ended the day in hospital under observation with concussion. And the Canadian, Ross Bentley, appears on TV in Vancouver with safe driving hints. Well, here's one. Don't crash coming out of the first turn.
Most of his speed was gone by that time.
Another Formula One world champion at the Brickyard, Nelson Piquet, once a teammate of Nigel's, back for the first time since his big crash last year. He crashed again this year, but a testament to the car's strength and the excellent work of the medical team on Piquet a year ago, no injury this time. The fact that Piquet struggled at Indianapolis in comparison with Mansell is a fair indication of Nigel's rapid progress. Practice continued, the massive grandstands filling with race fans determined not to miss a moment of the action. The first qualifying session was still 2 days away. Out on the track, the teams were searching for the best qualifying setup. Mansell was soon out on the circuit, putting more miles in the experience bank. Another excellent lap, 2:24.372 in the top 5. The rest of the team exuding an air of confidence as they watched from the pit road. It was all fitting smoothly into place.
Yeah, this is the perfect time to run because it's warm. Right? It's actually worse than when the other guys ran because it's gotten warmer. And this is when we need to run the time, so it's really good.
The last run I did wasn't too bad, was it?
Very good, because you had no toe. That was a good lap time for...
Another long but successful day. Strange to recall now, it was only Mansell's second full day at the Speedway. He'd the poise of a veteran. An impressive start, but the real tests, the qualifying, lay ahead. The mechanics' excellent preparation work on the car, an essential factor, gratefully acknowledged by Nigel. A good rapport being established here within the team.
Well, it's Thursday afternoon, 3:30, and we've decided to call it a day. We've run the last 3.5 hours, and I'm very pleased to say that we got up to 224.5 miles an hour average, which obviously is reasonably quick. That makes us third fastest at the day. Harry Lyndike is quickest at 226 miles an hour. I'm told that he got a good toe down the straight, which apparently here makes quite a big difference. And then there's Paul Tracy just in front of myself at 224.6 miles an hour. And then, of course, myself. We've stopped because we're going to put a different engine in for tomorrow now, and we're going to do about 30 laps and trim the car as close to neutral to be safe. We've run today with a lot of understeer in the car, but that gives you a lot of confidence out there. You sort of move out towards the wall, which can be sort of a little bit disconcerting, but it gives you time to get out of the throttle, come off the throttle, slow down a bit, and then come back on the circuit, on the line, I should say. I'm very pleased with today. I think the team are optimistic that with this engine tomorrow we should be able to improve our overall lap time a little bit more. Now, just going to relax and have a good debrief with the engineers and be quite comfortable and happy with the day.
Okay.
We got plenty of time tomorrow. Right. And I was just thinking you haven't loaded night.
No, that's nice. Thanks.
You know, you don't believe it when a driver says that.
No way.
All right, night, early night. Yeah.
The last chance to be on the pace prior to official qualifying the following day, when the first 5 rows of the grid were to be decided. Friday's the day for fine-tuning and limited experiment on the setup of the car. The team in excellent shape, Mario Andretti a real candidate for pole. Swapping notes in pit road, first and second in the championship, pulling for the same side.
Well, good morning. It's Friday morning, and I'd like to introduce, first of all, Mario Andretti, world champion Formula 1 and champion a few times in the Indycar series, and of course the 500, which is the greatest and biggest race of all time. Mario, what's the importance of the 500 to you?
Well, as you know, I like to think that in motor racing there's no bigger event, and career-wise, you know, the value of winning this race is immense. When you're here in this particular series, from a sponsor standpoint, everybody looks to this race, focuses on this race. And let's face it, it's the only race that we ever prepare for in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so, as you can see, with all the work that goes into it, you know, at the end of the stretch, you know, you like to bring something home, and nothing like the first place trophy.
And what's it like to actually win it here? Better than Formula 1 races?
Well, for some reason or other, I thought, on the personal side, I thought I would get equal satisfaction out of winning, say, the Italian Grand Prix, because that's where my dreams began. And in many ways it is, but on the overall, like the next day, you know, winning Indianapolis is an experience that I wish every driver that sets foot here could experience.
It's the impact afterwards, isn't it? The enormity of it all. Yeah. It's just like the circuit itself. I mean, coming here for the first time, I mean, to use the American word is awesome. To use the English word, very daunting. And I think every day you come back, it gets even bigger. And I'd just like to finish in saying Mario turned a very quick time yesterday afternoon, and I know he got blocked on his quickest lap, which probably would have been the quickest of the whole month. So Mario's going to be hopefully in great shape to go for that pole tomorrow morning. Thanks, Mario.
Thank you, Nigel.
The crowds poured in with high expectations. Among the hordes gathered at Indianapolis, some real veteran IndyCar watchers. And a large contingent of British fans. Some arrived early and took up residence in the grandstand opposite Pit Road, a little piece of Indiana, temporarily England. Roseanne making sure everything was in order, no superstition here. How many drivers don't allow anyone else to touch their helmets at all? Across the garage, the car ready to run.
The most important thing today is basically to settle the car down. Our quickest lap so far is 2:24. This is the day before qualifying, so I've already been warned that there's a lot of drivers out there today that are probably going to have little mishaps out on the circuit, because this is when they hang it out. They drive 10 tenths, 11 tenths, 12 tenths, and when you get to 12 tenths, you're probably going to lose it. For us, what I'd like to do is give myself a little bit of confidence and everybody in the team, and try and just up the speed by another couple of miles an hour, perhaps do a 2:26 lap or something like that, I'm hoping. We've got to try and just tune the car out. We've got a nice little understeer in the car at the moment. To go quicker, we need to get it closer to neutral without going past the neutral, because when it steps out, when it gets loose, then that's when you start having, you know, your problems. So that's our situation for today. The other thing is we want to do limited amount of mileage today. We just want to get the car just so it's comfortable, and obviously as quick as we can. As soon as we're comfortable with that, then we're going to call it a day. We're going to keep the engine miles down and the miles down on the driver, which at this moment in time is probably just as important.
Developing a smooth routine and a complete understanding between team and driver, it's all conducive to a good performance. At Indianapolis, pit stops for fuel and tyres are considerable parts of the race. This was a time for attention to detail. But even so, there were still opportunities to appreciate the support from the stands. Early prangs. Belgium's Didier Tays amazingly escaped with nothing more than a bruised thigh from this one. More serious here, Ross Bentley in trouble again. A split fuel regulator, the methanol burning with an invisible flame, and the marshals coming across to douse him with water. Bentley was kept in hospital with bad burns on his face, neck and hands, but he was back the next week for another crack at qualifying. The A-team in confident mood.
We're 1 o'clock on Friday now, and I mean, when you think qualifying doesn't start till tomorrow, I mean, I've never seen so many drivers so tense, and a lot of drivers out there nearly on the limit and over the limit already, and you can see the photographers here and people in the background. I mean, it's a different kind of experience.
But Nigel was obviously enjoying it. Progress was again encouraging. He reeled off a fastest lap of almost 225 miles an hour, second fastest of the day, third fastest of the week. Not a bad start for the English rookie playing the American game, and playing so far with style and panache. Interest in the big race was already at an all-time high, the result of the world champion's involvement. Off the track, the talk was all about his chances. Practice had underlined that this was a professional at work, never to be underrated. He wasn't here just to make up the numbers. As predicted, the car and the driver ran sparingly. The next day provided another challenge. The day's job done, Nigel watched from the pits with race engineers Jim McGee and Peter Gibbons, sizing up the opposition. The all-important draw for the qualifying runs on Saturday. Low numbers favoured, Carl Haas with the responsibility.
Here's the draw for the defending M1 champ, Nigel Mansell.
44. 30 places higher would have given him a real chance. Part of the Indy tradition on pole day, an early start for the Gordon Pipe Band. Drawn 44, Nigel had a chance to sample the carnival atmosphere before the work began.
Well, good morning to you. This is the day of reckoning. Here we are, Saturday, Indianapolis. It's coming up to about 20 to 8 in the morning. Mario, my teammate's out at 8 o'clock. He's in the first session, mainly because in front of me here we have 57 entries for today's qualifying for obviously 33 places. Now, the amazing thing is unlike all the qualifying I've certainly been used to, you draw your starting position out of a hat. It goes without saying that the draw is very, very important, and unfortunately for me, it's very historical that the early draws get the quickest track. The reason for that is it's cooler, there's not so much wind, and anyway, for my teammate it's been a fantastic draw because he's drawn 2. Now, where do you think I've drawn? This is where you've got to have a little bit of a sense of humour. My draw is 44. I'm laughing because that's a little bit of luck, and unfortunately the luck wasn't with me for the draw. So my teammate will literally be going to qualify within about 10 minutes of the track opening for qualifying, which will be just after 11 o'clock. My draw will be something like about 2.5 to 3 hours later. That also depends also on how many cars pull out of the line before it's their turn to go. There's a few T cars in that as well, which will be withdrawn. So the earliest I can go is probably about 27th in line, and you've got 6 to 8 minutes per time for qualifying, because you have to do 2 warm-up laps, 4 qualifying laps, and then you waved off the circuit, obviously with a checkered flag. So it's going to be a real interesting morning, and a very important one. And they have a saying out here in America that if you draw bad, you just have to take your medicine and go with it and accept what you get. And I think with 44 starting position this morning, I'm going to have to do just that. But the great thing for the team, I've got to say that Mario is going quick anyway, and with draw 2, he's going to have the best chance of getting the pole position at Indianapolis, and I hope he does it.
Nigel looking relaxed as he arrived on pit road. There was no use worrying about the draw. 44 meant going out in the heat of the day. Cars qualifying earlier had better chances in cooler temperatures. But Robbie Gordon Driving for AJ Foyt didn't make the most of his opportunity after being drawn 5. The crash prompted the great Indy veteran to consider his future. AJ decided to manage rather than drive, an abrupt end to a 40-year career. 4 times an Indy winner, 7 times the champion. He circled the track for one last time.
AJ, the fans have already said it, and we salute you. You shocked us all this morning.
Well, thank you. It's a hard decision, but it comes a time. I don't know. I think, like I said, it comes a time. I love all y'all a lot. You've been great fans. I love you. And I'll still be back, and we'll still be up in the winner's circle. Thank you very much.
With the retirement of AJ, Mario Andretti became the senior driver in the race, along with Alanza Sr. Mario produced another brilliant performance, lapping at an average of over 223 miles an hour. His crew thought it might be good enough to earn him his 4th pole at Indianapolis. Determined to prove it's a young man's sport, the 24-year-old from Toronto, Paul Tracy for Penske Racing. But the pace wasn't there, over 3 miles an hour slower on average than Andretti. Last year's runner-up, Scott Goodyear, started from last position on the grid and battled through to that sensational finish against Alanza Jr. He clocked over 222 miles an hour, not threatening Mario's pole position. The defending Indy 500 champion, Alanza Jr., a superb competitor from a family like the Andrettis, synonymous with Indianapolis. But 221.773 was not enough. Brazilian Raul Boesel, a former world sports car champion. Out on the track, 222.379, only half a second slower than Andretti, second quickest. Dutchman Arie Luyendyk, 10 years in Indycars, the highlight is win here in 1990. And it all came right, 223.967, pole position taken late in the day. The second Penske, Emerson Fittipaldi, 220.150, not good enough for the front row. Next up, Nigel Mansell. Even after the long wait, the crew were optimistic that the front row was within range, despite conditions being less than perfect. One attempt had to be aborted, so the next had to be right. That Luyendyk had done so well so late on was a favourable indicator. But to achieve over 223 miles an hour was highly unlikely in the circumstances. This, though, was the man to give it a go. The familiar commentator's cry, he's on it. And the first lap was a beauty. Nigel hurtling red 5 around the 2.5 miles in 40.575 seconds. A brilliant lap that brought the crowd to its feet and raised an eyebrow or two in pit road. Suddenly the impossible seemed likely. Lap 2 was slower. Not by much, but enough to require a supreme effort on the last 2 to clinch a place on the front row alongside Luyendyk and Andretti. Lap 3, quicker than the previous lap, but not as fast as the first. The requirement now for a real flyer to cement a decent grid position. Lap 4, the second quickest of the quartet, 40.89 seconds. The vital average speed translated as 220.855 miles an hour. A third row position secure. A fine performance by a rookie at Indy, but the competitive Mansell wanted to have done even better. He would have done too, had it not been for an over-eager pop-off valve. Row 3 then, the one to watch, with 3 foreigners, including 2 Formula 1 world champions in Mansell and Fittipaldi, plus the Canadian Paul Tracy. The tactics for Nigel? Stay out of trouble for 400 miles and then go for it. The third row slot satisfied the team. Now, completing 500 miles became prime target. 2 further weeks of practice remained to ensure that the team and the car were in top shape for the race. Out of the car for the qualifiers' photo call. Such pictures are taken of all 33 drivers in the race, but perhaps on this occasion, more of one man than usual. And winning pole position had its rewards. Here's a little something to tide Ari over for the rest of the month. Stars side by side. Paul Newman's always been a race fan and a driver too. On the track, rivalry intense. Off it, respect mutual.
It was definitely not a joyride because the car was sliding quite a bit, particularly through turn 3 and 4. But you know, it requires finesse to go fast here, and when you know the car is sliding a bit, you know you can hang on for 4 laps. This pole position means a lot to me in my career, and it means a lot in the United States. You know, it's not just another pole position; it's pole position at Indy.
And Emerson Fittipaldi, former winner, loves Indianapolis.
I think it's a fantastic feeling. I mean, there's no other type of motor race that can give the same type of feeling. Approaching at 240 miles per hour, turn 1, and when the car is good, you are able to take flat. I mean, that's a magic feeling. I mean, there's nothing else in the world like that.
Very pleased, obviously qualified the first day. We had quite a few problems to overcome, but we were there, and I think we achieved what we set out to do. Disappointed in being position 8, a little bit, yes, because in the heat of the day, when we aborted one run, we did a 2:22.9, and that was very, very quick indeed for that time of the day. 2 things then that sort of caught us out, and it was a great shame. We had a set of tyres which the stagger didn't come out on the outside as we had predicted, so the car understeered in the time trial, and in hindsight we should have used the same set of tyres than what we did at lunchtime. And then of course the one thing which is very, very important, especially on a super speedway, is the pop-off valve. And if the pop-off valve decides to pop when you're on your run, it takes a lot of power away, and you have to turn the valve down, and then when you turn it down, it probably has to go down too far, and then you have to turn it back up before it sort of pops again to get the maximum power out of the engine. And unfortunately I had both those problems.
High speed overhead 2 at Indy. Clear skies, temperatures up, and places on the grid still at stake. Lyondike, Andretti and Mansell held the front row, but 7 of the 33 places were still to be filled. In danger of being out-qualified or bumped, Bobby Rahal. From Monaco to Indianapolis, a universal fascination in cars and drivers. Eddie Cheever led for 9 laps last year, but he struggled to gain a place in this year's race. Losing the engine cover didn't help. He was consistently 3 miles an hour off the pace until he swapped cars for a late assault. On the Sunday, he threatened Bobby Rahal's spot, and the reigning Indycar Series champion suffered the indignity of being bumped off the grid, a celebrity non-starter. A survey of drivers at the circuit concluded that 92% of them believe that mental endurance and the ability to concentrate for 500 miles solid separates winners from losers at Indianapolis. Nigel, of course, is supreme in that department. Confidence was high.
Really, I'm very pleased, and I'm optimistic to come back for next week for Carburation Day, to hope that we'll be certainly in the top 6 in the warm-up, and then just hope for a great race. All the homework's been completed, and then literally the track closes down after tomorrow for 4 days, and it doesn't open again until next Thursday, just for 2 hours for everybody, and that's called Carburation Day. And then it closes down on Friday and Saturday, and then you don't run the car again until the actual race on Sunday. It's quite an extraordinary format, totally different to all the other IndyCar races, and very, very different from my good self. But we're up to speed. I think we've got reasonable setup for the race, which is the most important thing, and we'll just keep our fingers crossed.
Tom, it looks Looks like we have a 3-second penalty.
Still 72 hours to go before the big race, but the crowd willing it all to start early. Feverish excitement generated in the stands. Down below, it was all relaxed at the driver's pre-race briefing. Emerson Fittipaldi, an old hand at all this with his Penske crew. Scott Jim Crawford coming through for his regular Indy appearance. A first for Swede Stefan Johansson, while for Nigel Mansell, the problem was finding a clear way back to the garage. Carburation day, the last chance to set up for the starting grid, frequently the day when niggling problems develop. Since qualifying, Mansell's car had been transformed. Qualifying called for just 4 quick laps. Now both car and driver had to be ready for 200 laps in race trim. Changes to steering, different suspension and aerodynamics, and of course more weight with a tank full of fuel. This was the last chance to check over the settings for 11 o'clock Sunday morning. But once Nigel was out on the track, problems cropped up. The pressure valve which regulates the boost from the engine misbehaved. With just 2 hours scheduled for practice, Mansell dived into the pits. It wasn't a problem easily rectified. Time was now becoming critical. After a while stationary on pit road, it was back to the garage for a detailed inspection. A frustrating delay after all the earlier preparations had gone so well.
We've had a hiccup this morning where we've got a regulator problem with the boost, controlling obviously the power of the engine, and we're beavering away like crazy, changing quite a few things to try and get out on full tanks to get a run. The incredible thing is now is that after the next 15 or 20 minutes, and I haven't run on full tanks yet, there's no more practice, not even a warm-up lap until the actual race. So quite a few people are under pressure at the moment, least of all myself, and I'll be jumping in the car hopefully in the next 2 or 3 minutes to get those just few laps on full tanks to see what it's like.
Back out, problem cured. With time running out, Nigel produced an excellent lap on full tanks that was a real confidence boost. 2:22.5 miles an hour. Second fastest of the day. Meanwhile, no light relief this. The pit stop competition could earn the crews up to $30,000 from the sponsors in prize money. Alan Sir Jr. on the far side against Nigel's teammate Mario Andretti. Little Al's team won by a short head. But Mario would have settled for losing that one in exchange for a faultless display in the race. It had been a testing month for Nigel. The rookie program under the scrutiny of the Indy veterans, and back home in Clearwater, possibly an even more nerve-wracking occasion.
It was a week ago that I had to take my driving test in Florida as well, so I had my rookie test and driver's test all in the same week, and you know, I'd never been so nervous, but you can just imagine if you failed one or the other, couldn't you? The press headlines. I even said to the instructors I had, person who took me for my driving test, I said, you can't believe how relieved I am.
In Australia.
At the start of the season at Surfers Paradise, Nigel had helped a local wildlife charity by donating a palm print for auction. 3 days later, he won the race. Now, not wanting to tempt fate, he repeated the exercise. The only problem, though, was what to do with the surplus paint that didn't come off onto the canvas. The English journalists in the background used to slapstick humour appreciated that one, but the laughs betrayed more than a little relief that they weren't on the receiving end.
I knew what was coming, but I didn't want to ruin the TV show.
When Michael Andretti dropped in, a chance to exchange views on the season so far. Michael having swapped Indy for Formula One, while Nigel moved in the opposite direction at the start of the season. Whatever the formula, tyres play a major part in the outcome of any race. Changeable conditions make the tyre choice problematical. The idea is to find a tyre that produces maximum grip for minimum friction. And that's never easy.
Although all these tyres are supposed to be made to the same parameters and dimensions, you know, as we know, the world's not perfect. The tyres don't come out exactly the same. So we have to compensate with the cross weight to every different stagger we have in the car. And that's why it's very important when you pick your race tyres on an oval, not necessarily on a road course, but on an oval, it is essential to try and get 9 sets of tyres with 9 staggers and 9 sets of balanced tyres the same, because then you don't have to alter the car too much. The tyres you actually qualify on are the tyres you must start the race on. Now, it goes without saying that the tyres I had when I qualified, unfortunately, the stagger went the wrong way. And all my other 9 sets of tyres are totally different. So we are actually putting more front wing in the car. We're actually putting 1.5 turns of front wing in the car for my first set of tyres. When I make my first pit stop, the team and the crew will actually adjust the front wing back to where we had it today for the other sets of tyres. One of the most important things is trimming the car. This is a rear wicker. Just look how quickly you can change this. You put it in there like that, and you flap this round, and away you go. Equally, you can see when the car comes to a stop, there's a man that can push it out, pull it out, and obviously put another one in, smaller or larger. And you can either increase downforce or take downforce away from the rear. These 2 front wing adjusters are mighty important. As you can see, the front of it's painted yellow. That's to make sure that if one's pointing one way and the other's pointing the other, it means that you've got to tilt in one wing more than the other. But I mean, these can be adjusted every time you come into the pits, and no doubt in the 9 stops we'll be adjusting them all the time, trying to tweak the car. And when you hear people that they work on the car through the race and they try and get the car perfect for the last half of the race or the last quarter of the race, this is what they're doing. Every time they make a pit stop after 20 or 25 laps, however it may fall with your fuel economy, they trim the car. And in trimming the car, if you can get the car perfect for your last couple of sets of tyres, that's when you really go quick, and that's how you win the race here.
No visit to Indianapolis is complete without calling in at the Indy Hall of Fame. Nigel was shown round by Speedway historian Donald Davidson. As befits the racing capital of the world, there's an impressive display, including Ray Haroon's 1911 Indy winner.
There were 40 starters in the 1911 race. About 32 of them were what the organizers originally intended, that it would be passenger cars stripped down for racing. But there was a couple of Fiats and Mercedes and Benz, and Mercedes and Benz were different firms. Right. They were spirited in, and also this car was. Marmon was a passenger car factory, but this wasn't a passenger car. This was a one-off special. This one right here was very typical of the cars that were winning right after World War II. Front drive, it sits very low, centrally located. This is what is known as the Roadsters. Now, you see Roadster with a capital R. I always put quote marks around it because it's a nickname. It's flat, it's low, wide. The engine is upright, but on the left-hand side. The cockpit is all the way over to the right.
Of particular interest to Nigel, of course, the Lotus that the great Scot Jim Clark first brought to Indianapolis in 1963. A true racing classic, amongst a whole priceless collection of them.
This is a replica of Mario Andretti's 1969 winner. It's a Brahma Hawk, but the bloodlines are a Brabham.
Incredible,
and
isn't it?
It's got some bolted on, as you can see, some aerodynamic devices over the engine. And then the missing link was the 1971 McLaren. That was the one that got around the rule. They molded a wing into the engine cover. And when the tech committee said, well, that's a wing, you'll have to take it off, they said, no, it's an integral part of the body, it's molded in. So, all right, well, then run wings.
Okay.
So then in 1972, this is the Mark Donoghue winner, and as you can see, this one has a huge rear wing. Yeah. It is a McLaren.
Well, I certainly hope you've enjoyed that. I've been educated. What a historian Donald is. I'd like to thank him on your behalf and my behalf and the programme. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
So from the Isle of Man government, I would like to
On the eve of the race, Nigel welcomed a deputation from the government of the Isle of Man, where, of course, he still has a home. The Honourable Don Jelling presented him with a special proclamation and a set of 5 gold coins depicting Mansell himself in his championship-winning Williams Formula One car. The coins specially commissioned to commemorate his achievements in motor racing. and these will now have a place of honour on the Mansell sideboard in Clearwater. Paul Newman's a true motor racing enthusiast. His delight at securing the services of Nigel Mansell for the Newman Haas team was evident throughout qualifying at Indianapolis.
Well, it's the biggest sporting event in the world, and I think he reacts comfortably to pressure. So, but it's his first crack at an oval, and then it's going to be a matter of concentration, I think.
We have a game plan, yeah. Nigel has one. We've kind of agreed to it. It's important to finish the race and see where we're at. You know, see how the race progresses. Keep out of trouble. But Nigel's a racer, and he's not going to totally hang back if I know him at all.
The top team, Andretti and Mansell, a driver pairing that's the equal of any in motor racing anywhere in the world.
Well, it's certainly comparable to any that we've ever had. Michael was marvelously strong, and he will be heard from in Formula One. So it lived up to Clinton's idea of free trade. You see, we trade a champion and we bring a champion over, and there's no tariff.
Mansell mania has gone transatlantic and broadened Indy's horizons as a result, according to Carl Haas.
Well, I think it's done a lot for Indycar racing, certainly. With Nigel's show as this in the UK and all the rest of the press and worldwide interest, it's given Indycar racing a dimension beyond just North America.
And here's the trophy they're all after. Indianapolis moves into top gear. And some came 500 miles and more. The real fan in all shapes and sizes. Perhaps not the intended use, but original. And cop this, they've got free entry. Everyone else has to queue. Anything else you need to know? They have the technology. Here's the muscle. And here's the name.
Well, good morning. This is the magic day. This is Sunday. We're literally at 10 to 10. We have 1 hour, 10 minutes before the flag drops for the Indianapolis 500. The 77th race in the history of this sport. And I dare say you've been looking around at the crowd and the sunshine. It's going to be a momentous day, occasion, and the weather hopefully will stay with us. The only problem we have got is that they are forecasting possible thunderstorms from 1 o'clock onwards. If that does happen, then the race could be shortened, and someone might be smiling here. But hopefully the weather will stay with us and it will run the full course of 500 miles. Just about now to go to the garage area, literally fight my way through the spectator area, because from this area to the garage area, unfortunately, all the public are allowed, which is good and bad, depending on how quick you got to get to the pits. Get changed and just gather my thoughts for about 20 minutes then before I have to then go from the pit area to the pit lane. Everything is really happening. It's a lot of excitement going on, and hopefully you've caught some of that while you've not been speaking to me. And all I can say to you is please enjoy the day as much as I hope to.
On the big day, Arie Luyendyk's first ever pole position. Mario at 53, as competitive as ever. A rare front row position for Raoul Boesel. Second last year, but only just, Scott Goodyear. And still close to Goodyear, the 92 winner, Al Unser Jr. Stefan Johansson, the best placed rookie on the grid. Paul Tracy, only 24 years old, from Toronto. Nigel Stott will be crucial from row 3. Emerson, the wily old fox alongside Nigel. Row 4, Danny Sullivan, the 1985 winner. Row 5, Nelson Piquet, his first start at Indianapolis. Stefan Gregoire, the fastest rookie. Row 7, Lynn St. James, the only woman in the field. More Unsers and Andretti's on row 8. Robbie Gordon in AJ Foyt's colours. Sports car faces on row 10. And Jim Crawford, the other British driver, on row 11. As start time approached, not a seat to be had anywhere in the vast bowl. Every vantage point taken, 500,000 people ready for America's greatest sporting spectacle. A time for quiet concentration for the drivers? Not likely.
Here he is, the F1 champ, making his way to the seat. Nigel Mansell, the prep work for the fans. Good morning to everybody. It's just great being here. Well, we found a speaker there, Nigel. A lot of expectations and people around the world with their eye on you today. Well, yes, but I'm just going to keep focused and just concentrate, but it'll be nice. Give him a hand, there he is, Nigel Mansell. We're just going well for
The big crowd rooting for the rookie. Down on the grid, the Carl Haas ritual. The laying on of hands. Every part of the car has to be touched. It's a superstition carried out before every race. Oh, the cigar's never lit, by the way. Fittipaldi and Mansell, friends and rivals. A tense time this, but Nigel appeared unaffected, even though after all his years at the top, he'd never raced in front of a bigger crowd. Time to climb into the cockpit. Surrounded by an army of mechanics and engineers, all set for the 77th running of the great race, a challenge for drivers and for cars. The names must flash in front of him: Clark, Hill, Andretti, Unser, Foyt. Great names that have graced Indianapolis. Will Nigel Mansell be the next to join them in the record books? Down on pit road, everything that could have been done is completed. Carl Haas, the great motivator, G's up his team. Just moments away from the time-honoured instruction, though with a slight difference this year.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engine.
Even the most experienced have nerves at this stage. Moving off behind the pace cars. The first run round the 2.5-mile circuit. When the green flags fly, the race is on, and 33 cars will surge for the first corner. For one of the 33, glory awaits. 200 laps ahead, 500 miles. Each driver now on his own. His pulse rate multiplying by the second.
And the Indianapolis 500 with a swirl of green is underway for the 77th time. As Raul Boisel sweeps to the outside around Arie Luyendyk and picks up the lead. Aerial bombs fire overhead, announcing the start of the race. Carefully, the rest of the field picks their way through the second corner and onto the long backstretch.
Nigel played himself in through the early exchanges, lying 10th behind the two Penske Chevrolets of Fittipaldi and Tracy. Indy's a long race, over twice as long as any Formula One Grand Prix. To complete the course, expect around 3 hours in the cockpit. Good weather, initially hot, down on the track surface over 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Nigel Mansell against Paul Tracy. Exciting talent in opposition on the speedway.
We keep an eye on this battle now as you're watching the reigning world champion, Nigel Mansell, as he moves underneath Paul Tracy. And he comes forward in the field. Mansell now moving up into 9th place. This battle at the tail end of the top 10. Raul Boisel continues the lead.
The first yellow of the race early on. Scott Jim Crawford in trouble. A spin out of turn 2. Fortunately, no contact with anyone else. Nigel's first pit stop under yellow. The Newman-Haas pit crew under pressure for the first time. Fuel and tyres and adjustments to the rear wing. Smoothly done. A good stop by the team. A confidence boost to be safely over that. Kevin Kogan, Alan Cecilia and John Andretti in the top 3. They didn't stop under yellow. Going past Kogan, Alan Cecilia, 54 years and 1 day old, the oldest man ever to lead at Indianapolis. 85 winner Danny Sullivan, lap 30, he tested the resilience of the wall. And this brought out the second yellow of the race. Just when the drivers were settling down into a rhythm, the pace car came out and they bunched up again. The implacable Carl Haas in the pits. 4th place, Nigel Mansell in the pack, under yellow, running round at about 150 miles an hour slower than he expected. 5th after the restart. Up front, Mario Andretti opening a small gap ahead of Arie Luyendyk. Nigel's race going according to plan. Avoid contact, keep up the pace, drive for a finish. Into 4th place ahead of Teo Fabi. Traffic, though, starting to play a part. Nigel Mansell with Fittipaldi in his sights. Luyendyk went past Andretti for first. Behind, Mansell went past Fittipaldi for third. Working his way impressively through from 10th at the start. And the lead group now running together.
And here is Nigel Mansell running a strong third as we go 50 laps into this race. 1/4 distance.
Arie Luyendyk leads it. Just 0.4 of a second back as Mario Andretti and then Nigel Mansell, and you can watch both of them now as they close on the leader. It's a 3-way battle for the lead at Indianapolis.
Remember,
Nigel sets up his teammate. Nigel moves to the inside. Can Nigel and Mario make it side by side into one? There is a battle there, and Mario slams the door on Nigel. There goes Nigel. He moves to the inside as they come across the line. And can he hold the line down to the inside? He does. And Nigel Mansell takes over second place from his teammate.
We can tell each lap, each turn, he's getting more confident. He just looks better going through the turns. He's more in a good racing line now than we've seen.
Into a crowded, congested pit lane. The first stops under green. Even the most familiar with Indy make mistakes. Emerson Fittipaldi arrives at the wrong box and loses precious seconds.
And at the front of the field, it's now Arie Luyendyk, but perhaps not for long as Nigel Mansell sweeps around, and Nigel Mansell, the rookie, he's the reigning world champion, is in the lead, Bobby.
Paul, you have to notice that was a pass on the outside. Nobody has told Nigel Mansell that you can't pass out there, especially when the racetrack is slippery. That was a fantastic pass.
Bobby, Nigel Mansell is capable of doing a lot of passes that some others may not.
Bobby, when I talked to him earlier this year at his home in Clearwater, I asked him what made him better than the others, and he gave me a couple of evasive answers, and then he said, well, I go into the turns faster than they do, and that was evidence of it right there.
Immediately after taking the lead, Nigel called into the pits for his second stop of the race. Fuel and tyres, and just look at the concentrated aggression on the face of the world champion. Another good stop. The leaderboard was changing rapidly. Pit stops playing the main part in the confusion. Alan Cecina, Robbie Gordon, John Andretti and Scott Goodyear all in front for a spell, but then all had to call in. By lap 70, Nigel was back at the head of the field. The reporters had written that Nigel would take 400 miles to get used to it all, and then go for it in the last 100. Those theories were now being torn to shreds. The third pit stop for Nigel Mansell came under yellow for debris on the track, and this was the first slip in an otherwise well-drilled procedure. Confusing messages, and Red 5 overshoots the pit box. The crew quick to roll the car back. The importance of time accumulated on pit road would only become apparent at the end of the race. Nigel Mansell back out to resume 7th. Up front, Mario leading the Unsers, with Luyendyk in 3rd place. The battle for 6th, Tracy and Scott Brayton at turn 3, and Paul Tracy coming off worst. The first Penske Chevrolet, sidelined. In pit road, AJ Foyt, now team owner and manager and not driver for the first time, but seemingly enjoying it. Robbie Gordon running hard on the track. Andretti from Unser, Luyendyk and Mansell all in the leading group.
There is Nigel Mansell as he gets Arie Luyendyk for 3rd place. And now Mansell has an opportunity to look ahead to Al Unser Jr. That's slower traffic just ahead. And Nigel takes care of it with no problem whatsoever.
Well, you know, seeing him carve up the field like this, you'd think he's kind of a hot-headed guy, but he really isn't. He's extremely deliberate personally. He puts his gloves in one place, his equipment bag in another place in the truck. Everything has to be in order so that his mind is organized so that he can do this kind of thing out on the racetrack.
Sam, it's amazing how much I've watched him grow up or learn or get smarter during the course of this race, and this race is only a little bit more than halfway old. The guy's capable of learning faster than anybody I've seen in a long time.
Well, Bobby, we understood that in comparison with Alain Prost, who has taken over Nigel's seat on the Williams team in Formula One, Patrick Head, the engineer there, offered this comparison. He said, Nigel is very accommodating. He'll put up with anything. Whereas Prost is very finicky and has to everything just a certain way. Nigel can put up with anything.
Mario still leading. Nigel now after 2nd place, held by Al Unser Jr. Over 100 laps completed, and the Newman-Haas team a dominant force. Andretti in the lead at Indianapolis, a familiar sight over the last 30 years. Al Unser Jr., the defending title holder, had his mirrors full of the new Indy star. Nigel Mansell employing street race tactics on the oval, and to good effect. Indy 93 was becoming a tale of the unexpected. Just what would the world champion do next? Lap 125, turn 3, Jeff Andretti and Roberto Guerrero in collision. And Nigel Mansell steaming through, just avoiding the wrecks. Another yellow, another caution. Nigel's 4th pit stop of the race completed, back out in 6th position, still there in contention, counting down past halfway. The black flag out for Mario Andretti, the race leader, called in for a stop-go penalty for an infringement in pit road. Mario trailed round to the pits. No rush, the yellow was out. He'd lost the lead to Alonso Jr., but he'd lost little time. The team owners, partners in motor racing for a decade, on course for their finest hour. Green flag, 62 laps left. Alonso Jr. leading from Mario Andretti. Nigel Mansell running 6th. Alonso, the 92 winner, at the head of the field again, but pursued by a posse of challengers. Andretti, Unser Senior, Brayton, Fittipaldi and Nigel Mansell. Fittipaldi, 4th, past Scott Brayton. Stamina and concentration really starting to play a part. Mario Andretti after first place again. He won his first race for almost 5 years at Phoenix earlier in the season. His sole Indy 500 win was back in 1969. With Alonso Jr. a pit caller, Mario Andretti was back in the lead. Unser's car was proving thirsty. He'd need an extra stop before the finish. So Andretti leading, and also up with the leading group, Nigel Mansell, and nobody on the lead lap could be discounted. Another caution when Robbie Gordon in the AJ Foyt car was towed in with a broken gearbox on lap 168. Nigel's final stop. Filling the tank to near 40-gallon capacity. They didn't want to have a stop for a splash and dash late on. This was the pit crew's last appearance in the final act.
The Camaro pace car in front of this field, everyone closing in as tight as they can. Here will be the order. Andretti, Fittipaldi, Mansell, Brayton, Lyondike, John Andretti and Scott Goodyear as the green flag waves already. Nigel Mansell sees it just ahead and threads his way through the middle of this field.
Less than 25 laps to the finish. Suddenly the race order, Mansell, Fittipaldi, Lyondike, the 1, 2, 3. Against the odds, the rookie at Indianapolis leading the way. A glorious charge at the end of a month when the odds seem to have been stacked right against him. A Brit in charge at the Brickyard, the equivalent of the Lions winning in Wellington or England clinching the Ashes in Sydney.
A rookie leads the Indy 500 under green deep in the race.
And he passed everybody on the outside, the inside. He didn't care where he got them. He went by what made it look like easy.
Incredible series of passes that puts the red number 5 at the front of the field. And he does it very quickly. Of course, the other cars in the lineup were a factor for everyone. While they were moving low to battle between Fittipaldi and Lyondike, it was Mansell high, Bobby.
Yes, he certainly was. He's using all the track. But remember, hey, this is the last pit stop. This is going to the end. This guy's learned all day long. Now he's after it.
Remember that no defending world champion has ever won Indy. An amazing stat, and right now, Nigel Mansell is in a position to become the first.
For the most part, he's running in clean air, too, Sam. That's going to be a big advantage right now for him.
23 laps away from that possibility of winning as the defending Formula One champion. Mansell.
Both the Newman-Haas cars running very strong throughout the whole race. One of the two Penske cars out, the other one, Fittipaldi, doing battle. A clear-cut battle between a very experienced experienced driver here, Fittipaldi, and a former winner, and a rookie of enormous talent.
Carl Haas, calm. No, there's the nervous tension. And a new experience, usually he causes the excitement. The lady has her say. Lynn St. James, 24 laps from home, retires with transmission failure. Another yellow, and the field bunches up yet again. Nigel can only wait for the restart. Racing postponed. The going, though, stays good. Each lap behind the pace car saves those marginal on fuel a little more in the tank. Nigel can go all the way, given the chance. The big names all grouped together at the head of the field.
And here they come, the green flag flies. And Fittipaldi trying to catch position on Mansell. Is this inexperience for Mansell, giving it over to Fittipaldi? And look at Lyondike as he moves to second place.
First to third in an instant. Here begins the fight back, but time was running out. The irony, Nigel had given Arie Luyendyk the original idea with his adventurous manoeuvres earlier. Less than 5 seconds between the top three, but the problem for Nigel, spotting the way past. Fittipaldi first, opening an extra half a second each lap. Nigel Mansell still in third place, 8 laps to go. Into turn 2, and Mansell wide up towards the wall, a near brush with disaster. The car okay, but the yellow out again as a result. Mansell determined to keep going. A pits call would mean losing position. A truly brave decision to stay out, with the car damaged, yet still required to race wheel to wheel at over 200 miles an hour. 7 laps to go, at least 2 would be under caution. Nigel having to be patient again, waiting for the last charge to the checkered flag. Emerson Fittipaldi, 6 laps from victory, 4 minutes from home, and claiming Penske's 9th win at Indianapolis.
They're back green again. Now with 6 laps to go in the Indianapolis 500. Did Mansell learn enough on that last restart? No, Fittipaldi continues to dominate. But he did at least learn, as did Mansell, that they follow the leader everywhere they go. Now 5 laps to go.
Fittipaldi took that restart exactly the way you should. He got in the throttle first, as was his right as the leader of the procession.
Mansell didn't even give his car a chance to get checked out. The guy's going for road. Oh.
Unbelievable personal courage. They call him the Lion, and you can see why.
But he continues to run high off of the corners. There he comes off fairly low. Mario comes off high. Fittipaldi still pursued by Luyendyk. Just 10 miles left in the Indianapolis 500.
Emerson Fittipaldi, world champion twice back in the 1970s, retired from racing, came back into Indycar racing, won the championship in '89, and now look at this.
Emil's pulling away just a little bit more again, just like you did after the last yellow.
Emil may be pulling away, but the top 8 are still running fairly close together on this racetrack. This overall in the top 10 may be the closest finish we've ever seen for the top 10 position.
Roger Penske's assessment of his man, Emerson is tough, hard, and doesn't make mistakes. He has made no mistakes in this drive.
Luyendyk is trying to catch him again. Luyendyk's going clear down on the rumble strip, using all the racetrack he can go. He's really trying hard. I haven't seen him try this hard in years.
Bobby, he's 1.2 seconds back, but he continues to fall further back. He is not closing in.
He's not falling very fast, though, Sam. He's not giving up.
Emerson Fittipaldi can sense the checkered flag and its $1 million purse just ahead. He ran the last lap at 214 miles an hour, the fastest lap thus far in the Indy 500.
When he comes by here, he sounds like he's wide open. I can't hear him lift at all. Here he comes into turn 2 again, right down to the white line, out next to the wall. Very conservative, but moving on.
The first 5 drivers in the race right now born outside of the United States. This is an international event.
Emerson Fittipaldi continues to pull away from Ari Luyendyk. As we watch now for the white flag that will indicate Fittipaldi has just 2.5 miles to go for his second win at the Indianapolis 500. And there it is. Another Penske car heading into the record book. 2.5 miles to go. Fittipaldi works through the short chute, now into the second turn. One more full straightaway to run. 2 corners the short chute, and then half a stretch, and Fittipaldi will be home. Luyendyk tried to close, couldn't do it, dropped even further back. In fact, it may become a battle for second between Mansell and Luyendyk. Here comes Fittipaldi, Emerson Fittipaldi. The final turn for home, the checker flag, and Emerson Fittipaldi has won his second Indianapolis 500.
Mrs. Teresa Fittipaldi enjoying the champagne moment. Nigel Mansell's crew in pit road. What emotion. Victory so close for so long. Hopes dashed in the final moments. Emerson's trophy for the second time in 5 years. And the Penske team's record 9th win at the Brickyard. Nigel comes back to his team. Commiserations and congratulations. At this stage, no consolation that he'd played a major part in a great race. But eventually, the enthusiastic appreciation of the fans won through. The supreme effort justified. A great future at Indy beckons Nigel Mansell. So Emerson Fittipaldi's second win in the Indy 500, 10 years after it was thought his career at the top was all over. He'd won $1 million at the age of 46.
Emerson, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm so pleased. I mean, that's fantastic. The team made an incredible job, and we had a great recovery the whole month of May, and we did it. We did it.
You waited and waited and waited, and then made your move when it was most important.
Well, I think it was the last 2 yellows. We had great.
Let's talk about the restart with Nigel Mansell in the lead. Tell us about the move.
Well, I think it was a good move. You know, Nigel did a really good start too before last, but we were able to catch in again, and you know, the car runs perfect. What else can I say? I'm so pleased.
For another European, the lean spell over. Ari Luyendyk, the Dutchman who finished first in 1990 and second in 1991, followed Emerson Fittipaldi home. And the top rookie after a truly impressive oval debut. The world champion shrugging off the effects of his Phoenix crash and putting on a superb show. The racer in Nigel disappointed with third place, but the realist pleased with a podium position and the lead in the championship overall. The race was grueling, but the showmanship, the entertainment value, the sheer delight in seeing overtaking inside and outside on the banking, a testament to Nigel Mansell's rating as the world's most committed race driver.
Oh, what can you say? The team did a fantastic job. The engine worked perfect. The car worked real good. The only person who messed up was me. Oh, dear. Did you see me go past the pit and wave to her? Oh dear, and I mean, what can I say? It's my first time here, first time on the oval, first race on an oval, and I mean, I thought I did the restart good, and I lost the race on the restart. I mean, when Mo came past and Larry came past, and I don't know whether you saw on TV, I really then tried to push hard to get up to Harry, and I got him close in turn 2, and the front of my car washed out, and I hit that wall so hard. I think they actually got it on camera, but then I was lucky to finish, and to finish third, I'm absolutely delighted. Disappointed a bit for the team, but I think with all the things that happened during the course of this last 2 months, and the course of this last month here, me personally, I'm delighted. But tinge of disappointment, but Mo did a fantastic job today. You know, the Penske team and Roger Penske, many congratulations to them. Harry Leindyke, super move he did on me on the outside, and he was probably doing 230. And at that speed, I can't move, and I wouldn't move, because if you do, you're going to hurt somebody. So, great race. How do I feel at the moment? I'm a little bit tired, but I'm so happy. We're still leading the championship, and I think we've increased our lead to 8 points now. So, yeah, not bad.
And the most important win of Fittipaldi's career. No wonder he thinks he's driving better than when he was 25. But in 1993, the eyes of the world were on the 77th running of the Indy 500, and they focused on Nigel Mansell. A performance that promised so much for the future. In years to come, perhaps, youngsters who watch this race will turn to their grandchildren and say, I saw Nigel Mansell the first time he raced in the Indy 500.